Hello everyone. In today's video, we'll be learning how to make a navbar in React from scratch using React Router, and it will also be responsive. So if we go to the navbar over here, we see that we have the website name on the left-hand side. On the right side, we have the different links. If we hover over it, we see that it's highlighted. If we click on a particular page link, we see that the URL gets changed, and that works for the other links as well. And we see that on this page, since the page is too long, we can scroll down and the navbar stays on the top and it doesn't move. And we can also see that if we click on the website button, it goes back to the home page. And if we decrease the width of the page, we see that a hamburger menu pops open. And if we click on that, we can use the navbar as before. So we can change the pages and go back to the home page as well. And if we increase the width, it goes back to how it was. So this is a great project if you're a beginner to React and you want to learn how routing works and the basics of routing, as well as how to create responsive elements and components in React. So without much further ado, let's get started. So I just have some React boilerplate code over here, which you can get using Create React App or Vite. I have made some modifications though. So in main.jsx, there's only the app component. Inside index.css, we've added some styling to every element using the asterisk operator. So we've put the box sizing as border box, we put the margin and padding as 0, and the font family as Arial, Helvetica, or sans serif. In app.jsx, we just have some text which says navbar. And then inside app.css, we've added some styling to this app div over here. So we've just given it a background color of FE, 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 a height of 100% of the viewport height, and a width of 100%. Now, before we get started, we have to install React Router. So to do that, we go into the terminal and we write npm I react-router-dom. And then once that's installed, we can run our app using npm run dev. And then we can go to localhost and refresh, and it renders out the navbar which we have inside our app.jsx. So to get started, let's create our navbar component with the multiple links which we need. So we'll go into the src folder and we'll create a components folder. And we'll create a navbar.jsx component and a navbar.css file which we'll use later for styling. In navbar.jsx, I'll go down and write rafc and have an extension which lets me just create a functional component real quick by using that command. And I'll go ahead and save this. And then inside app.jsx, I'll replace this text and import the navbar component. And now if I save that, the same text is rendered out on the left hand side, but now it's the component over here, the navbar.jsx. So to get started with our navbar, we'll delete everything here and we'll use a nav tag, which is semantic tag, which basically tells the browser that this is the navbar. And then for each of our links, we will create an unordered list, and each link will be a list item. So for now, let's just write down about. Services and contact. Let's go ahead and save that, and we see we have the three rendered out on the left hand side. Now we need to be able to click on these, and whenever we click on these, we want the URL on the top to change. So if we click on about, /about should be added to the URL, and similarly for the rest. And to do that, we have a special component from the React Router library called link. So we'll go to the top over here and we'll just say import link from React Router DOM. And now instead of just having the text over here, let's just delete this about text. We need to add the link. And inside that, we'll have the about text. And let's do the same thing for the others as well. So over here, we have services. And over here, we have contact. And we'll go ahead and save that. And you'll see that nothing is being rendered out on the left-hand side. And that's because we're missing something in our main.jsx file. Whenever we're using React Router DOM components, we have to wrap our entire app inside something called browser router, which is supplied by the React Router DOM library. So we just say import browser router from React Router DOM, and wrap it around our app component. Now, what browser router does is it basically keeps track of the different routes that we have and the different links that we have in our website. And now we can see that on the left-hand side, all the links have been rendered out. So we'll go back into navbar.jsx. Now we can click on these links, but they don't really do anything. And that's because inside this link tag, we have to specify a specific attribute, which is the to attribute. And it basically tells React Router DOM to which path we want this link to go to. And it's a relative path. So if we write down /about, it will take us to the URL localhost 5173/about. So it'll just append it to your domain name. So let's do it similarly for services. And we'll do the same thing for contact. And we save that. And now if we click on about, it takes us to /about, services, and contact. Now, of course, we don't have any specific pages that we're specifying that need to be rendered at each path. So nothing is changing in our actual app. One more thing we need to do is we want to be able to go back to the home page. So outside this unordered list over here, we'll add another link. Since it's to the left-hand side, we want it to be separate. And we'll just say website. That's what we'll name it. And instead of going to a particular path, we just specify /. And what that does is it takes the website to basically no path. So for example, if I click on website now, it'll take us back to the main domain without any path appended to the end of it. By the way, if you're finding this tutorial helpful, please do leave a like. And I also have suggestions for books every engineer should read, as well as useful links for buying affordable domains and hosting in the description down below. So now that we have our navbar made, let's add the other pages that we want to render whenever we go to a specific path. So inside components, we'll create a new folder called pages. And inside that, let's create home.jsx, contact.jsx, about.jsx, and services.jsx. And inside each of these, I'll just use the rafc command to create a simple functional component. And if you remember, inside the services page, we had a lot of text to demo that the navbar sticks to the top whenever you scroll down. So over here, inside this div, I'll create another div and I'll write down lorem 100. And that basically adds a text with 100 words when I click on enter. And this is just a demo that the page can actually scroll and the navbar will stay at the top. Below this, we'll add a BR tag to just add some space below this div, and we'll copy and paste this a few times so that the height of the page increases. This is completely optional. You can do it if you want to see if the navbar sticks to the top. And we'll go ahead and save that. So we have all of our pages named and created, but we still aren't telling React Router which pages need to go related to which link. So it's not rendering anything at the bottom. To do that, we need to go into app.jsx. And below this navbar, we need to use another component supplied by React Router DOM called routes. So inside this, we will specify the different routes that we have. So /contact, /services, /about, and then the home page. And we'll specify for each of those routes which component needs to be rendered. So let's start out with the first route. And to do this, we need to import another component called route singular. And inside this, first we specify at which path we want this component to render. So let's say about. And then we specify which element we want to be rendered at a particular path. So of course, at the about path, we want the about component to be rendered. So we'll put an opening tag and we'll just save that. And let's just do it for the other pages as well. So we'll paste that and say at the contact path, we want the contact component to be rendered. And then at the services part, we want the services component to be rendered. And at the home page, which is over here, we want the home page to be rendered, and we'll add that at the top, and we'll say home. And now you see at the home page, the home text is rendered. And then we go to about is rendered. At services, the entire text that we added is rendered out over here. And then at contact is rendered. Now you'll see at the top over here that we are importing each of these components separately from their own files, and it's a bit messy. So a neat little trick to fix that is we can create an index.js file, and we can basically say export star from /home and do that for each of these files. So about, contact, and services. And now if we go back into app.jsx, instead of having all of these lines, we can just say import about, contact, home, and services. And we can say import it from /components/pages. And this is because index.js acts as like the entryway to the pages folder. And inside index.js, we're basically exporting everything from the other files. And it's a neat little way to clean up the code wherever you're importing multiple files from the same folder. And if we refresh, the website works as it did before. So now that we're done with the routing, let's add some CSS to our navbar to make it look a little bit nicer. And before we do that, let's just add a class name to our title over here. So we'll name it title. And that's the only class name we need to add. So we'll go into navbar.css. And what we need to do is target the nav element that we have. We'll give it a display of flex, justify content to space between so that the website is on the left hand side and the other links are on the right hand side. We'll say align items center. And the reason it's not changing anything is because we have to go into navbar.jsx, and at the top just say import /navbar.css and save that, and now we see the styling is being applied. So we'll go back into navbar.css, and then we'll give it a background color of bluish gray. So background color #0f172a, and now we see it's grayish blue. We'll now go and then add the styling for the title that we have. So we'll say nav.title. We'll give it a font size that's slightly larger, so 1.5 rem. We'll give it a margin of 1 rem on all sides. We'll give it a bold font weight so that it's a bit more bold. We'll remove all text decoration like the underline and the color that it has. And for the color, we'll give it white. So we're done with the title. Now for the unordered list, we'll make it a flex box as well. So inside the nav, the UL, we'll make it display flex, and it's a row by default. For each of those list items inside the unordered list inside the nav, we'll basically say list style none, and that should remove those black dots that we have over there. Now for each of those links inside the nav's unordered list item, we'll say display block, and that'll just help give it some height and width later on. We'll give it a text decoration of none to remove the underline. We'll make the color white of the text. We'll give it a padding on all sides of 0.5 rem and a margin of 0 and 0.5 rem so that it's a bit more spaced out horizontally, and then a border radius of 0.5 rem. We can't see this right now, but we'll see it when we're hovering over the links or when we have an active link. Now the next thing we want to know is that whenever we're at a particular link, We want that particular link to be highlighted so that we know we're at this particular page. And React Router DOM actually provides us with a very cool component which lets us do that. It automatically adds a CSS class to any link that is currently active. So instead of using the link tag that we have over here, we should be using the nav link tag provided by React Router DOM. So we'll go ahead and replace every other instance with it. And we won't replace the main website link because we don't want it to be highlighted whenever we're on the home page. And now all we need to do is that, say at the top, we want to specify the dot active class, because this active class will automatically be applied to any link that is currently active. And React Router DOM will check the current path to the links and figure out to which pages to apply this to which links to apply this to. So whenever an active class name is applied to a link, we'll just say background color, and we give it a background color of 1D 4E D8. And now we see, since we're on the contact page, the contact link is highlighted. Same for services and about, but for the home page, nothing happens. Now we also want it to be highlighted when we're hovering over a link. So we'll go to the top bottom over here. And usually what we would do is say nav ul li a hover, and we'll give it a background color of hash 172554 and save that. Now, if we hover over any link, it gets highlighted, but we'll see some unique behavior. Let's say we go to the services tab. The other links do get highlighted, but so does this one, and we don't want it to since we're already active on it. We want to tell CSS that this styling should only be applied if the element doesn't have the class name active. And we can use a pseudo selector called the not selector. So we can say :not and dot active. And what this basically does is it says apply the styling if the element does not have the dot active class. And now if we hover over the links, they change the background color, but the active one does not. Now, one more thing we want to do is we want to make the navbar sticky to the top of the page so that when we scroll down, it doesn't scroll with the page. So to do that, it's very simple. All we have to do is go to the top where we define the styling for the nav element, and we basically have to say the position of the nav element should be sticky. That alone won't fix it because we need to tell it to where it should stick. So we'll say top 0. And this tells CSS that the position of the navbar should be sticky and it should stick to the top since we specified 0. And we see that when we scroll down a bit, it doesn't move. But if we move a bit more, it starts moving. And there's a quick fix to that. In app.css, we can, instead of saying 100 viewport height, we can just say 100 viewport percentage. And if we save that and we refresh now, we'll see that the navbar never scrolls up. So we've made the navbar sticky to the top. Now the last thing we want to do is we want to make the navbar responsive so that the width, when the width is below a certain amount of pixels, it creates a menu icon and we can open the drop down. So to do that, we'll go back into navbar.css. And before that, we'll actually need to add the HTML for the hamburger menu. So to do that, we'll go below this link and we'll create a div and we'll give it a class name of menu. And to make the 3 lines, we'll just add 3 spans inside it. Now we can go into navbar.css and add the styling for it. So we'll first add the styling for the .menu class, which is the main div containing the menu. And since we want to be more specific, we'll say it should be inside the nav component. And we'll say the position, so it should be absolute. It should be from the top 0.75 rem, from the right 0.5 rem. We want it to be a flex box, so we'll say flex direction column. justify content space between. We'll give it a width of 2.25 rem and a height of 2 rem. And we'll save that, and of course nothing shows up because the spans haven't had their styling yet. So we'll say nav, inside that target the dot menu, inside that target the spans. Each of them should have a height of 0.4 rem. Each should have a width of 100% of its parent. The background color should be fully white. And then we'll just give it a border radius of 0.2 rem. If we save that, we still can't see it. So we put a display of flex over here and we save that, and now we can see the hamburger menu. But the thing is, we don't want it to be visible by default. We only want it to be visible once the width is below a certain amount of pixels. So by default, we'll give it a display none so that it's not visible. Now, to only show certain elements when the width is below a certain percentage or a certain amount of pixels, we use something called media queries. And to do that, we say at media. And if we want this styling to be applied when the width is lesser than 480 pixels, we say max width 480 pixels. And then all the styling that needs to be applied when the width is lesser than these pixels, it goes over here. So of course, all the styling outside this will still remain, but if any styling is present inside this, it will override whatever it was present before. So for the nav.menu, we obviously want it to be visible now. So we'll say nav.menu and we'll say display flex. And if we open the inspect element, yeah. So now the hamburger menu is visible now that the width is below 480 pixels. Now for the nav itself, we want the flex direction to be column, and we want align items to start. And that basically pushes out the menu items to the bottom, while just the title and the hamburger menu stay at the top. Now for the unordered list, we want a display of none. We want the flex direction to be column. We want the width to be 100%. And we want the margin at the bottom to be 0.25 rem. Now we're putting display none because by default we don't want the menu to show. We only want it to show when the hamburger icon is clicked. But we'll hide it for now so we can work on the styling, and we save that and we can see that the menu items are in a column instead of a row. Now let's add some styling to the list element themselves. So we just say the width should be 100%. And we want the text to be aligned to the center, and we save that and it looks a lot better now. And for each of the elements and the A tags inside them, the links, we just say that the margin should be 0.2 rem and 0.5 rem. And if we say that they're a bit more spaced out and it looks a bit more cleaner, now we can add the display none property back and we see that it's not visible anymore. Now, to be able to show this, we need to use something called useState inside a navbar.jsx, and we can import that from React. Now, we basically want to keep a stateful variable which keeps track of whether the menu should be open or closed. So we'll just say const menu open and set menu open, which will be used to update this variable, and we'll say use state, and by default it should be false. Now what we want to do is we want to go into this unordered list and basically say that we want a class name, but not a regular string. We want it to be conditional based on the menu open variable. So we'll say is menu open equal to true. If it is, we want to add a class called open to the unordered list. Otherwise, we just want it to have no class name. And now we can go back into navbar.css and we can say for the nav unordered list, if it does have the dot open class name, instead of being display none, it should be display flex, which should render it out and show the menu whenever the button is clicked. So now if we go back to the website and whenever we click on the hamburger menu icon now, it should open and close the menu, and it's not doing that because we haven't added a trigger on the click event. So we'll go to the menu and we'll say on click, make an anonymous arrow function. And in this, all we want to do is say set menu open, and we just want to reverse the value. So if it's open, it should be closed, and if it's closed, it should become open now. So if we save this and go back into our app, we see that clicking the icon opens and closes the menu. And of course, the navbar works as before, so we can go to the About page, Services page, Contact page, and close it down. And of course, if the width is larger, then the entire navbar is rendered out. So that's about it for this tutorial. If you want some links to some books and resources for engineers, such as buying domains at a cheaper price, you can find those in the description of the video. You can also find a link to the GitHub repo where all the code for this project is hosted. And if you did like the video, please do like and share it. And do subscribe if you want to see more tutorials. And comment down below if you want to see any more projects similar to this. Thanks for watching and see you next time.